on the way.
Boogeyman band coming round the bend. Is Boogeyman band? Is Boogeyman band?
Greetings, fellow Fright Fiends, and thanks so much for dropping by the Horror Zone. I hope everyone's doing well. Today's video is going to be doing a retrospective on a film that I have loved for quite a while now. This movie came out in the fall of 1992, so we're going back almost 30 years. But since probably 1993, when it first started appearing on cable television, I have been a huge fan of it. Not to say that it's a perfect film. In fact, there's some things about it that, doing some research for this video, I found out that some of the issues I had with it were based on like studio interference with the director and writer of the film. The name of the film is Jennifer 8, and this is a film that I did an underrated horror film segment on. I'm going to say back in 2015, so we're going back about 6 years. And in that I just sort of talked about why I liked it. It's not really a horror film, but it does have horror elements. It's more of a thriller. Very popular style of films that were coming out in the 90s. So movies like Pacific Heights or Internal Affairs. There's quite a few that I'm just not thinking of right now, but this was one of those style of films that had like scary moments, but would sort of get more of an A-list type cast than you would for just what would be quote-unquote a horror film. Doing some research on this, I found out that the original male lead was going to be Al Pacino, which would have changed the dynamic of the film quite a bit. Yeah, it was interesting to hear that Al Pacino was originally going to be cast in this, because I didn't know. But there was interesting stuff that I found out about this film, and I'm really excited to talk about it, and despite its flaws, why I love it so much. So the main character of the film is John Berlin. At the beginning of the film, he is driving to his new job and new life in Eureka, which is in Northern California. Despite the fact that most of the film was shot in Vancouver, there are some shots that were done in Eureka. John Berlin has quit his job in Los Angeles and taken a position with the Eureka Police Department. He is friends with Freddie Ross, who was his sergeant when he was a rookie. At the beginning of the film, Freddie is called to the scene of what appears to be a vagrant that has been killed at a garbage dump. It turns out to be an apparent suicide. Berlin goes to just assist and sort of make his presence known. What ends up happening is they discover, looking for the weapon that the vagrant used to kill himself, they discover a severed woman's hand. Upon doing some research, it is discovered that the woman was blind and that the abrasions on her hand were due to the fact that she read in Braille. Despite opposition from Freddie Ross, his boss, and his colleagues, Berlin suspects that the hand belongs to the latest victim of a local serial killer. Berlin ends up finding witness in Helena Roberts, a blind woman who knew the victim, and through his investigation, Berlin ends up becoming the primary suspect, which will prevent him from protecting Helena from becoming the next Jennifer. The cast: you have Andy Garcia as John Berlin, you have Uma Thurman as Helena, Lance Henriksen as Freddie Ross, Graham Beckel as John Taylor, Kathy Baker as Maggie Ross, Kevin Conway as Citriol, and John Malkovich as St. Anne. The movie was written and directed by Bruce Robinson. Now, for me, Jennifer 8 has always been a wintertime movie. The first time I watched this film, I was actually about 19 years old. I was at the time in college, and I was working as a baker. I was working at a bakery very early in the morning. I had to be there at 4 o'clock to get everything ready because the bakery was located at a mall, and I had to get there to prep all of the product and have it ready for when the store opened. So there was times that, I would get restless because I would have to get up early. As a kid, I hated getting up early. The fact that I had to be at the bakery by 4:30. Sometimes I would just get restless and I would just stay up watching TV and kind of fall asleep on the couch. I was still living at home, and I remember this film came on. I was a fan of Andy Garcia from movies like The Untouchables. Uma Thurman I had a crush on, seen her in Johnny Be Good, Dangerous Liaisons. And I was a fan of Lance Henriksen for, movies like Terminator and Aliens. Just a huge fan of the guy, I still am. And this movie just caught my attention, and I would watch it pretty regularly because it was on they aired it pretty frequently on, cable television at the time. And I just really loved the atmosphere of it. I loved the cinematography of it. Even back then, Conrad L. Hall's cinematography is absolutely beautiful in this film. And on top of that, as well as the amazing direction, but you also have the score. And there's this haunting quality to this film that even without showing quite a bit, there's this tension throughout the film, and you just feel anxious a lot, and especially because the John Berlin character is so committed in his convictions that there is a serial killer that is stalking blind women. And the fact that no one else really believes him, even Freddie Ross, who is really good friends with him, is just telling him to kind of just, hey, take a step back, you're getting too involved in this. His relationship with Helena, which a lot of people see as the reason why he's so committed, because he's so infatuated with Helena after his bad marriage, and there's things about her that people point out are just like his wife. So you have that dynamic, and he's on a new police force. There's friction there, and I just really love the dynamic, and all the performances in this are great. I think Andy Garcia is fantastic in it. I would have been interested to see what Al Pacino could have brought to it, but as much as I love Pacino, I can't see anybody else playing the part but Andy Garcia. Uma Thurman is amazing as Helena. She does a terrific job and convincingly makes it seem like she is blind. I think she does a terrific job. Lance Henriksen, this is one of my favorite performances of his. I love the Freddie Ross character. Just an amazing actor. And the dynamic between him and Andy Garcia as John just always just seems flawless. They just really seem like buddies. I also love Kathy Baker as Freddie's wife, Margie. Berlin and her are really close as well, and you just feel that. There's a couple of really heartfelt scenes between them as things get more tragic as the story progresses. Also, Kevin Conway, he's fantastic as the lieutenant, and I loved everything I saw him in. Also, even though his screen time is very limited, John Malkovich, who is just an amazing actor, really sells it for the about 15 minutes of screen time he has, and he's just terrific. The tension between him and Andy Garcia is just so amazing. Just terrific performances. There are some issues I have with the film despite being a fan of it. The main one is that there are parts of it that feel kind of choppy. It feels like there's characters that are kind of set up and there's never really anything done with them. There's like a newspaper reporter named Blattis who kind of is introduced at the beginning and then nothing ever happens with him. There's a couple of other characters that are kind of introduced that are kind of just throwaways and you never really get to know who they are. And that had a lot to do with the studio interference. Bruce Robinson has talked about in a book that he put out. Apparently they forced him to cut 20 minutes off of the film. And in doing so, what the conclusion was is that it truncated the ending. The ending of this film has always been the weakest part of it for me. It just feels very anticlimactic and very quick. It doesn't have it has a really terrific setup to like this really slam bang ending that you think is going to happen, and then it just kind of just goes pfft. It's just kind of over, and you're like, really? That's how they're going to end all of this build-up, all of this investigation, all of this tension, and it's just kind of over. And while it is satisfying for a certain character, based on what happens in that character's life, I really just have always been disappointed in this ending. It just doesn't work, and it just has always been the one sore spot with this film for me. But despite that, despite some of the choppy moments, despite the ending that just doesn't work 100%, I still think this is a terrific, moody film that works really well in wintertime. I love watching it. Like I said, there's so many positives that outweigh the negatives. The cast, the cinematography, the direction, the music. It's very creepy. Very well done, very atmospheric. Give it a chance, and if you guys are fans of it, let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Would love to hear from everyone. And as always, thanks so much for dropping by the Horror Zone and supporting what I do here. I feel like I'm getting back into my groove and I'm starting to do the things that I wanted to do earlier this year. Very excited about some of the segments I got coming up, and I hope everyone enjoys the content that I'm putting out. And if you guys are fans, hit the subscribe button down below. I try to upload videos at least once or twice a week, and I hope everyone's doing well, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. Peace.